Good morning. It's raining pretty well out there, and those delays caused by lingering ice is really what's happening. So it stayed a little colder there. For instance, here we're at what, 45 degrees?
45, yeah.
48 in New Hartford, 41 in Boonville, 41 in Dowsville, and 42 in Little Falls. So those are the areas where there are delays. And they're saying it's lingering ice on the roads, the sidewalks, the parking lots and driveways. And so this rain has just turned that into a really bad sheet of ice. So they have a bit of a delay. Here, our parking lot's not all that bad. There's some icy spots, but for the most part, it warmed up enough where it is. Oh, Davey went right down on his rear end. It was rough. You all right?
Last night I fell. As soon as I got out of here, you should have been here. A glare of ice.
Yeah. And that's what they're dealing with in these higher elevations.
So also yesterday, even in downtown Utica, I had somewhere I had to be, and it was and some of the sidewalks were good, but this one area I got lucky because that's quite a public place to fall, and I was able to kind of do the old skating thing and catch myself. But
we do our ice out of the refrigerator. It comes right out. It comes out in nice little cubes. I like it. It gets on the floor though. It messes with that hardwood floor that really isn't a hardwood. It buckles right up. Be careful with that.
Oh man!
So we have a delay inside our kitchen. My wife gives us 20 seconds to pick up any ice off the floor. You're going to ruin the floor. We just put that floor in. What's wrong with you? I did get an update yesterday, and this is worth talking about. This fire festival. We, of course, uncovered a story with a little help of a few people out there that Angela Rufaro, former chief of staff of Mayor David Rufaro, and now the media spokesperson for U.S. Senator Chuck Charles Schumer, was in the Netflix Fire Festival documentary. And if you haven't seen this thing yet, it is quite interesting. This kid was able to raise, not Rufaro, but this Billy McFarland was able, out of New York City, was able to raise huge, huge amounts of money. They thought he was the cat's meow, and they were giving him millions. People were giving him millions of dollars, and he decided to do this upper-end music festival where it was a big, especially millennials, wealthy millennials that may be working on Wall Street or celebrities. They all put down a ton of money. Can you imagine going to a weekend festival and spending $4,000 just on your tickets?
No.
You could go to the Super Bowl with that kind of money.
Still couldn't afford it.
Yeah. So, but a lot of people did. They put money down when they got there. The luxurious activities that were supposed to be going on, nothing existed. They had FEMA tents and cheese sandwiches. It was a disaster. Anyway, the guy ends up going to jail. Before he went to jail, he had a party at his penthouse in New York City, and Angela Rufaro was there, caught up in this documentary. So up until this point, we have had kind of a difficult time, and I've been going back and forth with Angela, but everything was off the record, right, the other day.
Yeah.
We did release a story on Monday, and the headline, what is Schumer's press secretary, Utica's Angela Rufaro, doing in the Fire Festival Netflix documentary? Well, yesterday, two things happened. New York Post picked up on the story, and you can imagine they're all over Chuck Schumer. And they reached out to Angela Rufaro, and I reached out to Angela Rufaro, and he released a statement. So you want to hear what he has to say?
Yeah.
And maybe I can take it right from his initial, my notes. That might be the better way to do this, because I can kind of do it in a little different way here. So here's what he had to say on the issue of what kind of relationship did you have with this perceived millionaire, billionaire. He also had started a credit card. So this was and this is brilliant when you think about it, because the same thing can be done anywhere. It was a metal credit card. You know how somebody will come in with their black card?
Yeah.
And they'll throw it down, and you hear it's kind of like metal hitting the, it's like, what is that? And they're like, oh, here, feel it. And it's heavy because it's metal. It's a credit card that's metal. Have you had one in your hands?
Not a black card.
It's pretty cool. And you get all of these perks with it. So he came up with a concept that you would create a credit card that latches on to a credit card. And it comes with perks and bonuses. So if you use the black, his metal card, I forgot what the name of it is. It's some name that he says he misspelled. Anyway, there were extra perks. So if you connected your credit card with his, it drew off your credit card, but every time you spent using it, you had extra bonuses and discounts, and you got cheaper ticket prices if you had this quote-unquote membership card. That's where he made all of his initial money. They also had a club in New York City where if you had the card, you could go to the club. They had parties, after-hours parties. They had happy hours. It was kind of a cool thing, and they show a lot of this in the documentary. So, asking Angelo the questions, what kind of relationship did you have? How do you know this this Billy McFarland who was on his way to jail? His answer, we were friends. I met him at a networking event, and we got along. Question number 2, why were you at his loft apartment, this penthouse in New York City? Why were you there? This is after he'd been caught, after he'd been arrested, before trial. So the implication in the documentary is that Angelo is very well connected. He is the press secretary for Schumer. And the implication of the documentary is that he was connected, and that's why, and maybe he was advising Billy McFarland. Could it be possible he was advising him on how to stay out of jail? Here is the question. Why were you there? Why were you at the penthouse, and you ended up in the documentary? He said, that night, as a result of a TV show or movie being filmed in his apartment, he had a very nice complimentary penthouse hotel room near my own apartment and invited me over to check it out. And he says, the background, I had no idea they were filming anything and only knew him. I didn't know anybody else that was there. I was completely surprised. And if you watch the documentary, and you guys haven't seen it yet, I'm not watching the Hulu version. There's 2 documentaries. There's a Netflix, which Angelo Rufero is in, and then there's another one that's a little more independent on Hulu, and I'm in the midst of watching the Hulu one. Anyway, he was there. They kind of implied that he was their PR guy, and he's saying, no, that's not true. And then finally, did you do anything to assist him in avoiding jail? They implied that you were connected, so did you use your connections, your powers that you are associated with being a press secretary with Chucky? With Chucky, and his answer, absolutely not. I did not one single thing to assist him, and basically in conversations with him that were off the record, but I think this would be okay to say. It's like it was cool. I mean, think about it. The guy's got a penthouse. He hired the 10 top models in the world, beautiful, unbelievably, the ones you see at the Victoria's Secret angel thing. 10 of the top models in the world, they came and spent the week on this island where they were producing this promo for the Fire Festival, all of which did not end up happening. So that's Angelo Rufero's, that's his involvement in this whole thing, and he is in, as we said, he is in the documentary.
So let me ask you about that. How long is this documentary on the
well,
Netflix
it's like
one?
every one.
It's
Probably
8 episodes or it's 2 hours?
No, it's more of a 90-minute, both of them are about 90 minutes.
Okay.
So
And
it's a one out.
He's in there
one
briefly?
One
off.
He is in there for just a brief, maybe 20 seconds, 25 seconds at the very end. But the guy that is one of the guys that's a witness to all of this was saying, yeah, there's this Angelo guy, and he's connected. And I don't know what he's doing for Billy, but he's completely connected. And they leave it up in the air as if something nefarious might be going on. And Rufero's saying, absolutely not. And he said, I didn't give them permission to tape me, and I had no idea that's what they were going to do. But he gets dragged into this thing. As you could imagine, Chuck Schumer would be like, what are you doing? What is going on here, right? But he's a younger guy, and, that's that. So now the New York Post has the story, and they jumped on it yesterday. And by the way, the New York Post story has nothing more than we have.
If I was Chuck Schumer, I would say something along the lines of, wait a minute, you're going to a private island with 10 of the world's top models?
And you didn't bring me?
Why wasn't I invited, Angelo?
I'm sure that's exactly what he said.
He was invited.
What else do I want to get into? A lot of stuff to do here today. We'll talk to Rachel Sutherland coming up in a few minutes on the latest on the shutdown. Some are saying, it's funny watching the people pipe in yesterday on what's going on between the president and Nancy Pelosi and the State of the Union. I have one friend texting me saying, boy, Trump is just spanking Pelosi right now. And then I had others saying, wow, Pelosi is spanking the president right now. So which is it? Turns out it looks like there will be no State of the Union as of right now until after the shutdown is over. So who wins that? We'll talk to Rachel Sutherland on it in a few minutes. Also, a free money question from Hobaika. I have also Nagel in this morning. We have a whole bunch of other stuff that we will get into here on this. And an interesting story out of the Utica School District on this Thursday morning. How about the payroll deal? After an audit, it looks like some $400,000 in pay was either inappropriate or not associated with the proper timesheets, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, we will get into that as well. And Brandon Lang, his reaction to the bad calls, what's going on in the NFL, and his reaction to what's going to happen in the Super Bowl. Who's going to take it? We'll get into all that stuff coming up here. It's a Thursday morning, and it is raining. Again, we'll run down the school delays this morning. There's about 4 or 5 of them, all associated with lingering ice. Is it A-Rod that's now doing a big no carbs thing? They've cut out sugar.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
but
it's him and his girl, his lady friend.
Is it J-Lo? Jennifer Lopez?
Jennifer Lopez that he's with? Yeah, they're doing this big no carbs.
He's also out saying, if Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens got into the Hall of Fame, that would help my chances.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, yeah, you think?
So we'll get into that. I want to talk to you about the Hall of Fame and the inductions. Michael brought up an interesting point here this morning on the designated hitter. If a closer like Mariano Rivera can get in, by the way, unanimously.
That's right.
What about, are we about to see a DH get in, an exclusive DH? That's something worth talking about. And a couple of interesting food stories. Davey, which line am I is Rachel on 1? It is 1. Okay. But we'll get into those coming up. Speaking of, I don't have a good transition at all here. I'm just going to go to her. Rachel Sutherland, we were talking earlier about the shutdown and now affecting the State of the Union. Who's winning this deal? Rachel Sutherland. What's the latest on the shutdown? Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the president has said he's going to wait to deliver his State of the Union. This is after this incredible back and forth between the president and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi yesterday. Some of us were speculating would there be a showdown at the Capitol next week because she essentially disinvited the president, saying simply because the government is closed. And so the president, this is kind of rare, and I'm waiting for the next shoe to drop because he has now said that he's going to postpone the State of the Union. They were looking at alternative venues, but he says there's no place like the House chamber, so he's going to postpone. But I don't know.
Well,
there's still several days.
I love when you say waiting for the shoe to drop because let's be honest, the way and it seems like Nancy Pelosi's playing the Trump game right now. So every time Trump hits her with something like you're not going to be able to fly on a military plane, you're done. We've grounded you. She comes back. Now, she's come back with this deal where the House is not open for the State of the Union, and the president has not fired back as of yet, but you know he will. You just know.
He's not going to take this lying down.
No. There's something that's going to come. And the shoe.
This is definitely hardball for sure on both sides. Yeah.
Wow. And I really have to think now, in watching this last night, is there a place where this has happened before? Have we ever seen anything in history like this battle between these two right now?
No, I have never seen anything like it, and none of my colleagues either.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all been talking about it. The idea that the State of the Union is called off is I just don't think there's any time in history that's happened.
I agree. And the other thing that I find interesting is the president is really treading very, very lightly with her, even when it comes to the nickname. He has a nickname for everybody. Last night I was watching this, and he said Nancy Pelosi. I call her Nancy. That was it. I'm like, that's it.
I don't. Yeah, I'm not real sure where.
Yeah.
He had called her something before. I thought.
I
He'll
thought
come
so
up with
too.
Something.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're now looking at this is the long. Obviously, it's the longest. We're a weekend past that, And but the scary part of all this is it does not seem, and maybe you see something different than I do, it just doesn't seem like there's any end in sight.
No, in fact, they're going to vote on a couple of plans today, but neither of them has the votes. They need 60 to be able to break the filibuster. No, neither has the votes. Treading
on new waters here. Pretty interesting. All right, Rachel, thanks so much. We appreciate it. Rachel Sutherland from Fox News. Have you ever seen anything like this before? I mean, this is unbelievable that it's still going on. And it's now really going to affect there was a wonder how much this will affect the IRS. Now, I don't know about your refunds or anything like that, but it is going to affect the IRS. They have been hit terribly by this shutdown. Refunds, I guess they're going to be coming on time, but there will have to be repercussions because of this. I mean, staff is way down. I don't know how they can handle everything they have to handle. There's also horrible news out there today. With Valentine's Day just around the corner, for the first time since 1901, you will not be able to buy candy hearts with the messages on them.
Oh,
why?
They will not be available. The company shut down. Necco. Remember those? The
wafers.
They had those Necco wafers.
Yeah.
They're gone, too. Not that anyone ever eats them, except for my grandfather loved those. They come in kind of like a wax paper where they're rolled up.
They're just like sugary wafers that have no good flavor.
Those are gone, but the candy hearts you're talking about, gone. They will not be available. I swear we've got to have a couple of bags around the house.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you still have
Necco
wafers from when they were first established.
Those I never bought. I never really liked those. But there are a lot of knockoffs that are out there, but the original candy hearts will not be available, made by Necco. There is good news, though. A company purchased them at an auction. So the trademark Candy Hearts, that has been purchased along with the Necco wafer things, but they will not be up and running until next year's Valentine's Day.
Why can't Peeps go out of business?
McDonald's is offering free, and I thought we were just talking about this the other day. Weren't you complaining that McDonald's, you can't get bacon?
Yes.
What was that story about?
That they're adding bacon to all their menu items.
They're giving free bacon next Tuesday. Next Tuesday is free bacon day at McDonald's for 1 hour only. From 4 until 5 p.m. at all participating McDonald's in America, you will be able to add 2 half pieces of bacon to anything on the menu, absolutely free. For
2
one,
half pieces?
For
also
1 hour.
known as one full piece?
Well, I'm sorry. No, we've cut them in half because 2 is better than 1. Didn't McDonald's have this thing where they had like a special Asian sauce that was rare? And they were bringing it back just for 1 day, but then they didn't ship enough to all the McDonald's, so they didn't.
You know what I think?
This could be the same problem. You're good, and everybody's going to want the bacon. You're going to run out of bacon.
All the employees, I think, were stealing the bottles and then putting them on eBay.
That was happening. They were selling. There were some that were selling for a lot of money.
Wasn't it the Mac sauce?
No. It was the Szechuan sauce, and they came in packets or of some sort
you're right.
too. So.
You're right.
But you're right. They were being sold on eBay, and I think employees were stealing them.
So they have bacon at McDonald's. I mean, you can get a bacon breakfast something, like
for
bacon.
Breakfast, yes.
One of my favorite sandwiches in the world is the bacon and egg biscuit that always has bacon on it. But they don't have bacon on their burgers. They don't have. That's what the whole thing is about.
So that's what we talked about earlier this week. Now this 1 day, 1 hour thing, you can get bacon on anything.
It's not just 1 day. It's next Tuesday.
It's next
5 until 6 p.m. You can put bacon on it.
4 to 5.
Whatever it is. Yeah, you might be right.
You don't want to screw
that
up.
It's not just any hour, Bill. It's 4 to 5.
That's a good point. You can put bacon on a Sunday if you would like to.
Well, but what about
4 until 5 p.m.?
What happens on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday? You can't get bacon.
Well,
on
that's
going to
be the
anymore?
release. Well, so
I'm assuming this
is
is the release of the promotion.
Okay.
Where you can now add bacon to anything, but you're going to pay for it.
Yes.
Okay.
And by the way, bacon is a staple of the no carbs diet. So there are a lot of people that are on this Atkins or no carbs type thing. So there you go.
There's still that whole bun thing you got to worry about, but just take that off.
Just wrap it in bacon.
Wrap it in bacon.
You take it off. I mean, there's I saw that Giorgio's is offering I'm going to have to pull it up on my phone, Giorgio's is offering, this is interesting,
Carb-free pasta?
a carb-free pizza.
Oh, really?
I'm sorry, it is not carb-free, but it is low carb. Let's see if I can give you the details on it. It is new and delicious, according to Giorgio's in New Hartford. Our low-carb, gluten-free cauliflower pizza is $9.95. This is the new thing. You can add a topping for just $1. Try it at lunch or dinner now at Giorgio's. The crust is made out of ground-up cauliflower.
That's cool. A lot of people are doing that.
The other thing that you can do is you can make a crust out of ground-up chicken. I've had that, where you ground up the chicken, and you might add an egg to it. I don't know. There's a recipe. And you flatten it out, and then you bake that. It becomes the crust, and then you put your toppings on it, and that becomes a no-carb thing. So, and one more food item, if you'd like. That's at Giorgio's, by the way. Their new low-carb, gluten-free cauliflower crust pizza. Not an advertisement. I'm just throwing it out there because I thought it was interesting. And one more. Free wings at Buffalo Wild Wings, which we don't have one of those around here, although
no, it's coming.
It's been coming for about 5 years.
We've got a few businesses that are trying out that location first, but eventually...
I'm pretty sure it's going where they park the plows over at Sangertown, over there in that old outbuilding. Anyway, there is one in Syracuse, but Buffalo Wild Wings is offering free wings if the Super Bowl goes into overtime.
Oh, that's cool.
So someone took the Buffalo Wild Wings commercial where the bartender has a ref make the game go into overtime. They combined it with the missed penalty from the Saints-Rams game, and thus, here's the audio that I'm going to play for you.
From the gun, takes a snap.
Final play for the
only thing that would make this any better is overtime.
They'll need a miracle to win this football.
Goes to the near side. Hit early. Where's the flag?
And it goes to overtime. It means free wings. Buffalo Wild Wings giving out free wings if it goes into overtime. What are the chances that it goes into overtime? Probably not all that good. Here's one for you, and this was brought up by Michael earlier this morning, and I'd like your take on it because you seem to be a baseball purist. I think you are. Mariano Rivera gets in, and gets in, by the way, unanimously, which is a big deal. He is a closer. That's his job. Maybe, and it's not even an inning. It's not even he doesn't even pitch necessarily a full inning. Sometimes he might go in for a couple of outs or to get the final out, what have you. But he goes in unanimously, probably the best ever. Michael poses the question, does this mean, Davey, you think about this as well, we might be looking at an exclusive DH that would be making his way into the Hall. What do you think?
Yeah, I guess it's possible. You know, someone...
Who would that be if...
Well, Edgar Martinez was up.
I would say David Ortiz from
David
the Red
Ortiz.
Sox.
That's exactly.
That
is exactly, by the way, who he named.
He was a player though before that.
Yeah. That's what I think. The only thing that happens is a lot of these guys become the DH after. You know, man, my back. I just can't seem to. I can't seem to make that stretch out in left field anymore to make that catch.
You want me?
I'm not diving, but man, I still have a great bat.
Yeah. Do you want me in your lineup 160 games, or do you want me in your lineup for 120 games?
Yeah.
And I'm playing third base as well. You know. So.
And by the way, I'm not even going to have to worry about running the bases because most of the hits that I get are going to be home runs. Okay, so at least I hope. Or pop flies. But I said most of the hits I'm going to get are going to be home runs. The pop flies don't qualify. So.
Well, much like
because most of the time he hits the ball, it'll be a pop fly.
Well, it's much like David Ortiz. Jason Giambi spent a lot of his time as DH towards the end of his career, but he's got his own issues why.
And
he's
that
not
is
getting
always
into the Hall of Fame.
but they might end up getting into the Hall of Fame not because of their DH duties, but more so because of their play prior to that.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. So the other thing is they're going to put Major League Baseball is considering they're going to vote on it. They're going to put up the signage that my grandmother used to have in her dining room with all the fine china. It's going to say no running between home plate and first base. You're not allowed to do that anymore.
Yeah.
You have to trot, watch, walk, or you can just go back to the dugout.
And this isn't about anyone getting hurt. It's just to be fair to the other guys that struggle running these days. They're older. They have a hard time running. So
and they're lazy. You know, the whole Machado
laziness.
thing. God.
So, all right. So then the question it goes from, will the National League go to the DH? And my answer to that is absolutely. I hope not.
Yeah,
I love the fact that the strategy that goes into baseball to know that you've got to. well, maybe we're not gonna let our pitcher bat. I could go a couple of more batters, maybe even a couple of more innings, but we need the hits, so we got to pull them. It's all that strategy that goes in to the National League that I think I love. I find, because I don't watch the American League, I'm a Mets fan. I find that the whole DH thing is foreign to me, and I would not want to see it in the. I get it, more home runs.
I'm fine with keeping them split. The only thing I wish is, though, and this isn't just a problem the Mets have. When they go to a pinch hitter for the pitcher, right, when there's a move to be made, it's always some guy who's like, he's been 8 years in the minor leagues. He's like a 230 hitter. Let's be honest, even on a good year, he's going to hit 10 home runs. Yeah. We're in the American League. I feel like 1 through 8 or 1 through 7, they're all sluggers. They're all guys who can hit 300. They're all, I just feel like the offense in the American League.
The pinch hitter is an afterthought. Oh my God, who do we have? Who's still available? Whereas the designated hitter is something they put some thought into, and they look for somebody. They will actually trade for someone that they know they're not going to put out. If we had to, we could put him at first in a pinch. But for the most part, he's going to come in, and he's going to be in the lineup every day because he hits home runs.
Yeah. I'm just saying, with guys like DeGrom and Syndergaard, right, when it's time for them to come out of the game, and those are two
guys
who
can hit. By the way, they
hit
the ball.
They can hit, right. Mm-hmm. So it's like, all right, well, we're going to pinch hit with Andrew Derminio, and Andrew's only got he bats 220, couldn't hit it out of the park if he was standing on the fence.
Yeah.
So it's
Says
says me, yeah. But it's just funny to me. Just leave DeGrom in, even if you're going to take him out, let him freaking hit.
I still like the competition, the strategy. Managers must do a better job of finding people who can pitch hit. Fair enough.
Tim Pryor messaged you to say,
hey Tim.
I can't.
It's
see
on
it.
WPNY.
It's on your page. It's on PNY at 8 o'clock. I know it's an 8 o'clock.
I will
start.
tell you, though, it's not showing up on the TV guide, online TV guide. That they're calling it local programming. No, they're saying the Good Wife and it's a Good Wife marathon. Awesome.
Can't wait.
Tonight, I'll be glued to that. So maybe they are still running it. I'm just not seeing it on my guide. The president and Nancy Pelosi going at it. There's a bit of a stalemate, a battle going on there. The House is not open for the State of the Union. The president said, well, just when he thought he was going to say, I'm giving the speech anyway, we're going to maybe do it at the Senate or somewhere else, announced yesterday that the State of the Union will be happening after the government reopens. Jenna Ellis is a political analyst. What are your thoughts on this, Jenna?
Yeah, I think that President Trump is putting the right priorities and just saying, you know what, we have so much more to focus on as a country, like the immigration and border crisis, and like everything that's going on with the abortion bills that came out of New York.
Yeah, I've got a bad sell on you, Jenna. I'm sorry.
Things that are priorities.
Apparently, with me too, because you can't hear me. I'm having a hard time hearing you and understanding. It's what is it, Jenna? Let's forget about all this political talk. Let's talk about what in the hell's going on with my iPhone. Half the time, people can't understand what I'm saying. Are you on an iPhone, or what are you on?
Yeah, so I'm connected through a phone, but it's a landline, actually.
It's terrible. Oh, it's a landline? It sounds awful.
Yeah, it's spotty.
Man,
I've noticed in this building, my cell phone's spotty lately for the first time ever.
Listen, Jenna, why don't you go open your window up and yell out your window? I'll bet you I could hear you better. Where are you located?
Perhaps. I'm actually in New York right now.
You're in New York.
There we go.
We completely hear you. I would. So your take is that the president is making the right move here.
Yeah, I think so. I think that to have some sort of petty squabble over delivering a State of the Union that's not, required annually, even in the Constitution, and to just say, this is something where we have so many bigger priorities to focus on as a country than just warring back and forth with Nancy Pelosi, like the immigration crisis and other things.
Are you surprised that like last night when he I was able to pick up somewhere, one of the networks played a little longer version, so it basically played his whole statement that he made yesterday on this. And just when I thought he was going to throw out a good new Nancy Pelosi nickname, he said, Nancy Pelosi, I call her, and I'm at the edge of my seat, I call her Nancy. Like, wow, he is reserved. She's the only one that I can think of that he doesn't spank with a very offensive nickname.
actually, and I think that's just fine, and the fact that he is deferring to the fact that she is the Speaker of the House and is really saying, I'm going to approach the table in good faith, wanting to negotiate with them, I think is really showing that he's very serious, and it's casting the liberals and the Democrats in a bad light to say that if they're not willing to have good faith and look at this, then it's really the American people ultimately that suffer for it.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt about it. I think they all look bad in this. Unfortunately, though, the polling showing that this is hurting the president more than it's hurting Pelosi right now. But that could,
that's really the mainstream media's twist on it. If you're just watching CNN, you're just watching MSNBC, that's all that you'll hear. But if you actually look at the facts and if people take time to do more research than just look at, whatever's going viral on Facebook, like the Covington kids and that whole fiasco, then you'll actually see what's really going on.
Well, actually, that poll I read from Fox News this morning, so it was not a CNN poll. But either way...
But I'm saying the influence of people.
Understood.
The influence of people.
Okay. And that's what's causing it. Well, what I was going to say is that with polling, this can change on a dime, right? All it takes is one bit of a turn... And where Democrats, I think and Pelosi certainly is acting as if she's invincible. I think she should be very, very careful because the public opinion could change very, very quickly here.
Well, absolutely, and we've seen that change, even leading right up to the midterms with whatever's going on in the news cycle. I mean, we have at least probably 17,000 more news cycles before 2020, and who knows how many more, before the government reopens. And depending on what happens in the news cycle, what the mainstream media focuses on, that's what drives these polls. And also the tenor of the question. I mean, they can definitely be geared toward eliciting a certain response. So, we've seen even in 2016 how inaccurate the polls often are. And so that's, again, why people have to take the time to actually look at what's really going on and recognize that for American values, we have certain priorities.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Jenna Ellis, political analyst through Fox News. Thank you. Are you happy I didn't argue with her? I wasn't going to argue with her. She's absolutely. The polls were actually pretty darn accurate. It's an easy thing to say that the polls were so wrong in 2016, but they weren't.
I know.
Hillary Clinton was in the lead. She was going to win. Everybody thought she was going to win. But if you look at where the numbers changed just prior, it was dead even. And that's really, when you think about it, Clinton won the popular vote, but with the Electoral College, Trump clearly won, and the polls really weren't wrong.
Right.
When you really look at the numbers, and again, that was a Fox News poll that I read. It was not a CNN poll.
Yeah, and Fox actually had that poll at 6:00 this morning.
And I got to tell you though, but the point that I was trying to make, that she's not a political analyst, by the way. She's a political operative. There's a difference between the two. But the interesting thing of all of this is that she's really dictating. She's playing the game right now, and she's playing Trump's game. And what I find that is interesting is how quickly this whole thing could turn. And all of a sudden, Pelosi looks like she's the one that's not willing to deal. Because there's only so much longer this thing can go on before somebody's going to say, well, he's offered A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you're still not willing to take it? I mean, at some point, you got to take it. A deal. Get this thing over with. So I think her time is limited on getting off as coming out being the person that's in the right here. Mm-hmm. Keep an eye on it. I'm just saying, this could turn very quickly. That was just my point. 7:21, hold tight. A free money question of the day coming up from Hobica. We'll get into that. And hopefully I'll have a word for you coming up in a second as to which channel officially, we think it is PNY, based on what we're being told, the Syracuse game tonight. If you're following it, I do. I never miss a game. I'm obsessed with it. You guys are not interested in it at all. We're also going to talk about Manaski's. No, Jeff, you're not interested in anything right now. It is, if there has ever been a time that we're walking on pins and needles, and Andrew and I have allied, we are allies here in this. It is now the lack of nicotine in your system, and people should be calling up and applauding you and congratulating you.
Wow,
you have not had a cigarette since
Sunday night,
and it's big. That's huge.
Yes.
and it's really killing us. Could we get him some cigarettes, please?
Listen, here's the funny thing too, is that I actually have some. So they're right on top of the refrigerator. I keep looking at them, but I haven't touched
Don't do
one.
it.
Right.
You've gotten this far. I think and I don't know anything about nicotine because I've never smoked, but I would imagine, I know food, and it just seems that once you get up, you're climbing a mountain, and then you're up at the very, very horrible peak. It's cold, the wind's blowing.
Yeah.
Could blow you off the peak, as a matter of fact. Mm-hmm. Now, I think you're making your way down, and it will begin, if it hasn't already, to get easier.
There are times. I mean, I've got some momentum, so that helps. So
momentum helps.
So many times, I've said this, and people are like, "No, there's no way." I really think that since I've been an adult, I mean, I've been here for 16 years. I started here when I was 19. But I think my adult life, I don't think I've ever gone one full day without a cigarette. How disgusting!
You started when you started smoking when you were what?
I was like 16.
Mm-hmm. I believe 16. That the brain is not fully developed there, and I could be wrong here. But just my novice.
But it wasn't like so.
But you smoked at 16
sorry.
when your brain was not developed.
Yeah.
You know nothing else. Your brain was developing with nicotine.
Right.
And without it, it has to be more difficult than somebody that started when they were 25.
Right. I think you're probably right about that. But I just want to say too, like the first cigarette I had, I was probably 16, and then you'd smoke here or there or something like that. But it was like. I mean, I've been a pack-a-day smoker for probably at least 15 years. It's so disgusting, I can't even think about it right now. But anyway, I guess my point that I was trying to make was this weekend, because I do this like every third Monday, I'm like, you know what? This is going to be the week. I'm going to kick the habit this week. I'm going to prove to the whole world that I don't need to smoke. And I feel like garbage, right? So, and then I get into Monday, and then Monday happens. And with all due respect, I mean, you guys are here. There's stress. There's there's all these different things going on. And I'm like, you know what? Because I can't really function without a cigarette mentally, when it gets to that brain development, I can't think straight. I'm just going to have a cigarette, and I'm only going to have one. And then it's, well, once what do they say? Once you break the seal, that's it.
Yeah,
like once you had the one, now when I go home for lunch, I have another. And then later on today, I'm going to see my son. But when he goes home, I guess I'm going to have another one. And then tonight, I'm going to be bored. I'm going to have another one. Anyway, long story short, I told myself Sunday was going to be the day. Woke up to the snowstorm, went out, I snowblowed. It was a miracle. It was a Christmas miracle. My snowblower actually turned on. I was all excited. I actually did the neighbor's driveway too, totally for free, because that's how I was like trying to pay it forward. And I'm not smoking today. Well, it got to be like midday, and I was waiting for the football games to start, and I'm like, and I had a cigarette. So then again, broke the seal with one, had a cigarette, then I ended up going to the store. I bought a pack, and I ended up having 4 or 5 cigarettes Sunday night. And then I'm like, okay, Monday, tomorrow's the day. All I have to do, I just want to prove to myself that I can go one day, 24 hours, without one cigarette. You tell me I can't go one day? I can't go one day without a cigarette. So then Monday happened, and I was going to smoke on Tuesday, and then I've been building momentum since then, but let's be honest, this can't continue forever. I am actually planning that at some point this weekend, when I get to relax and have a cocktail, you
cannot do it.
I am going to buck the
this
trend.
Is a drug.
And then jump right back on the not smoking thing.
No. You got
Bill, I'm going to go to jail for beating the crap out of somebody.
I know. I'm going to tell you something. There have been moments.
I'm afraid it'll be me.
Honest to God, there have been moments. I've never seen anything like what I've witnessed here this week. Honest to God, and I want to tell you, I've watched Brad Davies, a good friend of mine. We worked together. Brad had oftentimes tried to quit smoking, and irritable is one thing. Yeah. You're one step away from killing somebody. I swear to God, I've never seen anything like it.
Over the littlest things, too. Could you pass me that stapler?
Yeah.
I'll pass it to you.
This morning, I made the mistake of saying, hey, what we ought to do is I'd love to give the temperature in Downsville, it's 41, and Boonville, it's 42, and Marcy, it's 43. We could give temperatures all around and Manasseh's looked at me like I thought you were going to kill me.
We're not doing that. Ever.
That's not what I said. I didn't say
You didn't say it, but you might as well have.
Yeah. Your lack of saying anything was enough.
Oh, my God. I was wow.
I apologize. I am sorry. I appreciate your support.
Apologize. What you should focus on is the fact that this is not how you are.
Right. I'm let it roll off my back always, right? Nothing gets me mad.
And if this drug, which is exactly what it is able to do this to you by taking it out of your system, imagine what an amazing stronghold it has on you. which is why you should be afraid to have another one. Not just not wanting to have another one, even though you want to, but be afraid of having another one for what it can do to you. It's kind of like I've never tried cocaine in my life, and the reason is because I'm afraid of what it would do to me. So I feel like if I did it once, it would be like, oh, this is good.
Yeah,
I'm going to do this all the time, and I could never. So I'm afraid of it, and I think that's not a bad thing to be afraid of it.
I have gotten some because we've talked about this before, and I've never been able to go a full day. But anyway, I got some emails from listeners who were awesome. I think one was David, and he was probably the one I remember the most. Extremely supportive with tips, and that's really awesome. I just want to say thank you. I got a message today from our friend Paul Buckley, who was somewhat supportive, but not quite as much. Here's what he says. You're doing great. Stop whining about it and move on. Just forget them. You're giving it way too much thought. You'll thank yourself once you get over the initial hump. It's called willpower. Don't be a blank, weak blank blank, and let this blank consume you. Move on and deal with it.
I've never heard him use blank before. That's so incredible. John is wanting to pipe in here. Hi, John. You're on the radio.
Hey, Bill. How you doing?
Wonderful.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey.
I smoked for 28-plus years, and I started probably when I was 12. I used to take a puff off my dad's Lucky Strikes back then.
Boy, that's.
And then when my daughter was born, I quit smoking cold turkey. I quit, and then next thing I know, the girls at work, can you take my cigarettes and hold them for me? That's the worst thing.
Yeah.
I gave them all back to them. I said, no, here, you take your cigarettes, but stick with it. How long's it been?
It's only been since Sunday night, so
4
we're
days
actually
tonight.
3 full days.
4 full days tonight, maybe.
You're almost over the hump, man. How old's your son?
Right, and this is the other thing. So my son is 3 years old, and I've wanted to quit since he was born. But it's more of like I'll be fine. This, you know what? One more cigarette's not going to. I'm not going to get cancer right now if I have one more cigarette.
No.
Right.
And it's been 3 years of at least a pack a day. I don't want. I can't even do the math in my head right now because I can't think clearly. But
you're gonna in the long run, because when I quit, my daughter was very active in sports, field hockey, you name it, and I went to and I jogged with her to keep, so you got to do it.
Yeah.
Your son will thank you for it in the long run.
You're right.
And probably won't even realize, right? Because the quitting of
he's going to have so much energy and be able to keep up with them. Come on, Daddy, let's go ride my bike.
It's just going to be something that your kid will know that this is the way it is. This is how my dad is. So,
well,
yeah, cool. All right,
I did it.
John,
you can do it. You went this far.
You can do it.
Just drink lots of water and eat lots of carrots.
Yeah, that's funny.
Thank you, John.
I've been drinking lots of water. I got carrots down the hall here, and I'm going to the gym with my extra energy. I've been going to the gym like twice a day. And I don't know how long that's going to last, but I am enjoying it. And I've been telling this joke. I can't fully tell it, but my chest is sore. And every morning I wake up, my chest is sore. So that lets me know I guess I did some good things yesterday.
Yeah. And believe me, when your chest is where you don't want to be is that your chest is sore because you can't breathe because your lungs are filled with cancer.
Or you're having a heart attack.
Right.
And that is... that's just an awful thought.
You're right.
And I don't know about you, but it just seems like there's so much around us right now. Tim Reed, of course, was the big inspiration for me and for all of us. And it just seems like there are more stories today than we've ever seen before.
Yeah, I mean, I got a story at the end of last week that we won't get into, and I'm thinking to myself, Tim Reed, and then this person, and then this cousin, and then this aunt, and then this, all these people who weren't even smokers who have cancer.
Yeah.
So I'm listen, I got to get out of this.
How many? You cannot discount secondhand smoke, and whether your kid is smelling it from inside the car or smelling it off your clothing, you just cannot. You can't discount that. It's a real thing. So you're making great gains. We're supporting you.
Thank you.
Damn it, get over this because this is getting old quickly for us.
Tomorrow, you guys are going to want to be around me tomorrow. Either one night this weekend, I got to kick back and have a drink and have at least. I got to have one.
Please don't.
That's all I keep looking forward to.
Dolgeville is now closed. Dolgeville Central School has now closed. Icy conditions. That means you got to. Yeah. I didn't want to tell you that until after you did this nice spiel. Dolgeville is now closed. I'm going to get to the Weezer album in a second. I want to go through the songs that are on this album. It's really cool. It's an album of covers, all inspired by that huge hit over the summer, Africa. We'll do that. And On this, the kids with the Native American, the Catholic school kids, I did an editorial, an op-ed, if you will, on our website, and was just hammered over it. I stand by my opinion on this thing 1,000 times over, and I'll explain it a little, but I'm thinking most of these people that are ripping on me, Don, by the way, specifically you, take your right fist and punch yourself in the face for me, because that's what I'd like to do to you. You haven't read the story. If you read the story, you wouldn't have made the stupid comments that you made on Facebook. You got to read the story. Just don't read the headline. We have to open your mind to somebody else's opinion. That's all I'm saying. And by the way, it's not easy for me to do either. Free money question of the day. It's Thursday, which means it's worth $500. We'll give you that opportunity coming up at WIBX. Let's do our free money question of the day. It's worth $500 today, Davey, from the Hobica Law Firm. Joseph and Andrew Hobica, 315-724-1600. Caller number, what do you want to do? You tell me, man.
8.
Caller number 8, 315-736-0186. Caller 8 right now at WIBX. Quickly, Renee standing by in Deerfield on Chef. Good morning, Renee.
Good morning. I wanted to touch on the smoking thing.
Yes.
Okay, really, I'm going to try to make this as quick as I can. I'm 54, and I only started smoking at 49. And everybody I say that to, looks at me like I have two heads. Who starts at 49?
Yeah, that is interesting.
It is. I was under some stress. One of my friends smoked. She's like, have a cigarette. You'll be fine. Well, I instantly became addicted. And over the last 2 years, I've tried 3 times quitting. Twice on Chantix, once on my own. And I can't get past like that 6 or 7 mark.
And this is only 5 years that you've smoked.
5 years.
What's the 6 or 7 mark? The 6 or 7 mark?
You mean days?
Years. I can't get I'm sorry. I can't get past the 6 or 7 month. So as soon as 6 or 7 months,
man.
I start smoking. I don't know why.
Wow.
But this time, I quit about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But this time, my doctor, a new doctor, suggested that I take this Chantix very different than the manufacturer says you're supposed to take it. So I followed his instructions. I only had to take the Chantix a couple of days, and it was a miracle. For some strange reason, the urge went away, the hyperness went away. It's like I never smoked before.
How did he tell you or she tell you how to do it differently?
Well, you're supposed to take one in the morning to start with for, I don't know, a couple of days, and then you go to one in the morning, one at night, and then you move up your strength a little bit.
Yeah.
And you continue to take them for, they say 3 to 6 months, whatever. But he does it differently. He says up to 1 day in 24 hours, which at night you're sleeping, so that doesn't really count. But so in a 12-hour period, you can take 8 of the lowest dose of Chantix in a day.
Wow.
So it's crazy. So every time you get an urge, you pop one. And it's safe to take up to 8 a day. As long as it's the 0.5.
Yeah.
And it has worked. I just can't believe it because I've never had, it's my 4th time, and I've never had this easy of a time quitting smoking.
First of all, how long have you been without a cigarette now?
About 3 weeks.
About 3 weeks. And the other part is, what I find so interesting is you haven't smoked that long. It's not like him where you started when you're 16 years old. This is how quickly this nicotine gets a hook into you. And
oh, my gosh. It happened the first day.
Yeah, wow. So I would assume he should talk to his doctor about this because you have to get it prescribed. But maybe that is that's the answer, doing it differently like that.
Yeah, it really it really has worked.
All right. Well, thank you, Renee, for that.
Does that mean I can start smoking again until I see my doctor?
No.
Are you sure?
No.
All right. Please keep us up to date on your progress. Call us when you hit that 6-month mark so we can talk you down if you're feeling any of those feelings, okay?
Okay, thank you. Good luck, Jeff.
Thanks, Renee.
Thanks, Renee.
I was fortunate when I had my problem of smoking because I really don't think it was the nicotine. It was, for me, the habit. So that's, I think, the big difference between Jeff and I.
Yeah.
Where Jeff's got that chemical dependency. I hate to say it like that, but the chemical dependency on it, where for me it was just easy.
You just were able to just quit.
I was able to just quit. But
I've never seen a reaction like I've seen with
But
you.
his willpower is strong. And
Well, I will
it's
say
almost
that-
worth putting up with. I hate to say it like that, but I'm cool with putting up with Jeff's.
The moment, Andrew, the other day when the school announcement came that somebody had closed, which meant he had to go back down the hallway and change it for all the other stations, and all of a sudden we're sitting there and your fists hit the table and like, wow,
the mics were ringing for the next break.
I'm so sorry. As soon as I did it, I'm like,
oh,
you know what?
my God, I've never. But it's a drug that has taken you over. You have to accept that.
Withdrawals is essentially what it is.
So, all right. Well,
and it was the 6th freaking time.
I know.
And I just was like, man, I hate to see how he's going to be when we get like 30 schools that close one of those days.
Yeah.
Debbie in Utica. Hello, Debbie. How are you?
Hey, Bill. How are you?
Good. Do you smoke?
I did when I was in my 20s, a social smoker.
But you don't
wasn't
now?
addicted.
Yeah.
Could have won $500.
That was the $500. Yeah.
Do you smoke for $500?
Okay. All right. Here we go. We're going to do the question. It's worth $500 from Hobica. Are you ready, Debbie?
I'm ready.
All right. For $500. You know, I've been talking about the band Weezer. In a few minutes, I'm going to play their new album that just was released today, which has a whole bunch of cover songs on it. So here's your question.
Okay.
Which car was a huge part of Weezer's first album? Ready? Go.
Which car?
This is a tricky question.
I looked at everything else. I looked at all the names. Everything.
So you did your homework.
I did my homework. I got them all written down.
Which question did you want me to ask you?
The Teal album, 55.
Oh, you did good. I am so predictable, aren't I? It's like he's going to be talking. It's going to be a Weezer question, I guarantee it.
Yeah, Weezer. I got them all written down.
So you're right. The name of the album is the Teal album, but I went back into their history, and the question was which car, and in particular, go ahead.
It's not an ice cream truck, is it?
In particular, member of the band The Cars, the only band member you'd probably know that's in Cars, Rick Ocasek, produced the album, Weezer's first album. So, well, listen, I like to see that I'm giving more opportunity to win this thing.
She's got an encyclopedia of show notes.
She's good. Debbie
I got
is.
a whole page of notes here.
You are good. All right, we're going to give you a gift card to the 72 Tavern and Grill at the Adirondack Bank Center. Can we give her something else? Is there something else you have?
We have the Fox 33 stuff. Yeah. Do you have a favorite show on Fox that you like to watch? Because we've got some cool stuff from the shows.
Yeah, where's Bill Morehouse when I need him?
Yeah, you're right.
We've got a few of his pens here.
How about a tchotchke? That'd be nice.
Yeah, how about a fly swatter?
I will. We'll find one for you.
We'll get it.
I will tell you, despite Bill Morehouse's criticism of me yesterday over this kid, this story about the Catholic kids.
Right.
I used his ice scraper to scrape my car off yesterday.
I did too. It was very strong.
That. It worked really well.
I used one yesterday too. I could have used one.
All right, you sit tight. Davey's going to hook you up, and we'll give
thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you. Give you some swag. How about she's figured it out? It's like she did her homework. She had notes. That's really smart, Debbie. Rick Ocasek produced the. So which car? And I said it's a bit of a trick question. Which car was a huge part of Weezer's first album? The answer is Rick Ocasek. I do have to break. And when I come right back, I'm going to play, just one after another, I'm going to play some of the songs that are on this new album. It's really cool. Also, I want to get into the Catholic school controversy with a Native American. These people unleashed on me after I wrote an op-ed saying, and I stand by this, the kids were in the wrong. But when you read the headline, there's more to the story than that. And I'll explain when I come right back. And feel free, you can pipe in and yell at me firsthand if you'd like. Don't be a coward and do it on Facebook. 315-736-0186. We'll do it next. You actually took phone calls, a couple of calls on it. Why didn't I challenge him? I'm going to tell you something. Screw you. And Bill Morehouse, especially you. If you knew anything about the job that I do, I would take your comments and they would mean something to me. But it's like me coming in and telling you how to put two and two together. Okay, I'm not a comptroller. I don't know anything about what you do, and technically you are a comptroller, but you're not you're not necessarily an accountant or a CPA. But I think you're seems a really good businessman, and it is what it is. But don't tell me what I should do. Here's why I didn't challenge the guy. And by the way, I did. I asked him I felt all the pertinent, tough questions yesterday. And that is, what about Sharia law? What about, what about Iran? What about, the problem is, when he went after the president was when everybody got mad because he called the president, did he call the president a racist?
He did.
And that is his opinion. The guy, and let's not forget that for the campaign, leading up to the campaign, afterwards, the president was certainly not very complimentary to Muslims. In fact, wanted to have a ban on Muslim countries. So it's no surprise to me that this guy doesn't like President Trump. So that is his opinion. There's nothing I can do about it. And I had Ryan Nobles coming up next, and I wanted to talk to him more about this. Turns out Ryan had canceled. I could have gone longer with this guy, but I only had so long with him. I wasn't going to get into a fight with him. It's his opinion. I know for a fact that people are going to disagree with it. And I don't know anything about the Muslim faith. He says he's a Muslim progressive, and that the old conservative Muslim faith that people take literally, he says is no different to the way that a Baptist might be anti-gay, or look at the Westboro Baptist Church that is they protest military funerals, or a very conservative traditional Jewish faith where the woman is basically a second-class citizen. The same thing in so many other religions. So he's saying there that the Muslim faith, progressive, is no different than any other religion in the United States. So who am I to challenge that? I didn't challenge it. But I thought I asked tough questions. Should we have fought with him? I mean, Jeff, the last thing I wanted to do is let you have at him because you're nicotine-free. And it would have been awful. So I was worried that it was going to turn into this giant fight, and I didn't want that at that point. So that's that. So, Bill, I don't question you. Actually, I do. I sometimes wonder about those surpluses. But but I'm just asking the question, Bill.
For the record, I do too. But let me say this. It's so funny because there was something he said. It might have been the racist thing, but I wanted to jump in with something, and I started to say something, and then you just kind of jumped over me with another question, and you knew where it was going.
I knew where it was going, and I wanted to move on because I had another guest coming on, and I didn't want to get into a long fight with this guy.
Yeah.
And not to mention, he's coming to speak tonight or last night at Hamilton College. I didn't want that fight.
Right.
So it was my choice, man, and that's how I do this show. If you don't like it, there's a right hand or left hand. I'm not sure which it is that you use for your pen and your utensils, but I know that turning the knob on the radio dial, you can use either one. That's what I did. You don't like it? There's an Italian word that I hear. You don't like it? Stuga. I don't know. Whatever. I don't know what people say.
It was the name of Tony's boat.
Here is quickly, and I want to. And on the kids thing, I'm not going to have enough time to get into the Catholic kids thing, but I'll talk about that on the other side of the news because people ripped on me over that. And again, I don't care. It is my complete opinion. Andrew, there are more on there, right? There's like dozens of people.
Yeah, there's some good ones there.
Half of those people probably have not even read the op-ed. They read the headline.
I would encourage folks to, especially if you've already commented, read what Bill said about it. Read what he said, not just the headline.
Because I'm absolutely correct based on my parenting beliefs. It's not about politics. It's about parenting. And it is how I believe. It's what I believe, and it's how I brought up my kids. Not saying my kids are perfect, and I'm not saying they wouldn't have done the same thing those kids did. But damn it, my belief is there was disrespect there. And not to say that the American Indian was correct, that the black group was horrible and racist, but I teach my kids to be stronger than that. And I'm sorry, that's how I feel. Period. You can argue with me till the cows come home. You're never going to change the way I feel about that story.
I do feel, from a national media point of view, if those kids are standing there wearing a Yankees hat, a Pokemon hat, or some other hat, the national story is different.
And if you read, you haven't read the story either, but at the very end, the last line in the story was, this would be a cool experiment. Yeah. Put the Make America Great hat on the American Indian and make the kids marching pro-abortion and see if people's opinions would change on this. Mine would not, because no matter what their politics are, I still saw kids being disrespectful. So take it how you want. Maybe I'm this holier than thou and all that crap. I don't care what you think. It's how I try to bring up my kids. And I'm sure I fail. I'm sure my kids will fail. They're not perfect. And I'm sure as a kid I failed. But it doesn't mean you don't try to make your kids, hey, I teach my kids in a situation like that, the guy's 80 years old. He looks like he's 120. Walk away from the guy. Get yourself out of the situation. That's what I've taught my kids. And that's why I felt it was disrespectful. So you don't like my opinion? I don't care. Do you think that's ever changed my mind? It doesn't. My wife, however, has changed my mind. Sometimes she'll say things like, you are going to change your opinion on this. And I'm like, okay. Yes, I am. But you ain't going to do it. Not on Facebook, especially. Today, Alec Baldwin pleaded guilty. And he has agreed to anger management classes, which might not be a bad idea. I do wonder, could he be quitting smoking? Could that be? No.
This has been the longest quit in the history of mankind.
Yeah.
He's been a jerk forever.
An awful temper for a long, long time. Anyway, Alec Baldwin pleading guilty in New York City court. There is a benefit coming up for Melissa Bova Keeler, and she's someone that I worked with at the Good News Center. And the third option, and in studio, Mary and Terry, who also we worked together on that project. Talk about what's going on here and what you guys are doing.
I would like to thank the WIBX and the Bill Keeler Show in the Mohawk Valley, because when it becomes a crisis, we're all failing.
Yeah,
and we'd like to take a moment on the air to talk about Melissa Bova Keeler.
Go ahead.
Good morning. Melissa is a 50-year-old single mother who's battling her third round with cancer. Her first was 14 years ago with breast cancer. The second was 4 years ago, and now. Melissa is not one to give 100%, but 150 in everything she's involved with. She's an inspiration to this community, leaving an impact on everyone that she comes in contact with. Originally from Utica, Melissa, as of last spring, resides in Spring Hill, Florida, in order to pursue her work. Unfortunately, she's been hit with stage 4 metastatic carcinoma cancer. Melissa was involved in organizing fundraisers for people with cancer, veterans, dedicated to helping grieving people and those who were struggling in relationships, and also involved in writing for missing children. Aside from working and volunteering her time, Melissa is an avid bike rider, teaching spin classes to encourage others, and a runner competing in several sprint triathlons. She's a single mother, always supporting her only son, Sean, who is currently an active duty member in the United States Air Force.
Wow.
And we would like everybody to set their clocks and mark their calendars for Sunday, February 10th from 2 to 6 at Danielle's at Seneca Turnpike, New Hartford. At that time, we're going to have food, music, and we're going to have all kinds of raffles. At that time, we're going to Skype Melissa, and she would love to see all our faces. At the same time, I think it would put a big smile on hers.
That's really awesome. So, again, that's February 10th, 2 till 6 p.m. At Danielle's Banquet in New Hartford. So.
Correct. Yes.
All right. It's always nice to help out somebody. I mean, this is horrific, but when you try to help someone out that's always been there to help everybody else out,
correct.
That's really it's really giving back in the most. I think one of the greatest ways to give back, right?
Absolutely.
So, Mary and Terry, we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It is from 2 till 6 p.m. February 10th for Melissa Bova Keeler. So,
thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll break 8:24 at WIBX. You know who does incredible covers
Doves Cry.
of Prince is the band Train. They do an amazing job. Davey, just tell me who you have. I know our computers are down.
Brandon.
Brandon's on. Brandon Lang, of course, is the inspiration for the movie Two for the Money. And, of course, Matthew McConaughey played his character. And Brandon is our expert when it comes to betting and the lines and sports in general, especially collegiate and professional. And when it comes to no calls during games, like pass interference calls, we always check in with Brandon. What do you think, Brandon, on this controversy over the Saints and pass interference?
Well, Well, I'll paint you a couple pictures. I'll paint you the first picture of the fact that let's go back to the ensuing possession for the Rams, 2nd and goal at the 3-yard line. Jared Goff gets his face mask yanked, which would have set up 1st and goal at the 2. More than likely the Rams score there. Now it's 24-20 rather than 20-20, and the dynamics of the next Saints drive would have changed. The same plays wouldn't have been called because they don't need a field goal. They need a touchdown. So you probably would have never gotten that play had the officials not missed a blatant Jared Goff face mask. So, yeah, it's tit for tat, but if we're going to cry about the pass interference penalty, let's cry about the fact that not calling Jared Goff's face mask cost the Rams 4 points.
Yeah.
Let's also talk about the fact that the Saints were up 13-0 with 1:56 to go in the first quarter, and the Rams defense held them to 13 points the entire rest of the game. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the fact that to come back and win in that environment the way Jared Goff played. So don't think that the Rams shouldn't be there because they didn't earn it. They earned it. They played their butt off for the last 3 quarters. Now, let's go to the Patriots and the Chiefs and the narrative there. The New England Patriots do not deserve to be in this Super Bowl. And here's the narrative that I'm going to paint for your listeners here. 56 seconds to go in the game. Chiefs lead 28-24. 2nd and 9. Brady drops back, throws in the interception. Game over. Chiefs going to the Super Bowl. Brady, 3 interceptions. Tom Brady only scores 10 points in the second half against the Chiefs defense. The Patriot defense gives up 28 second-half points. They blow a 14-0 lead, and the Belichick-Brady era is over. 3 interceptions in a championship game from Tom Brady, 1 in the end zone and a horrible throw by the GOAT? Are you kidding me? Chiefs to the Super Bowl! But wait. D. Ford is offside, lines up in the neutral zone, and you give Tom Brady another chance. And now everybody talks about, and the narrative changes to, oh, my God, Tom Brady was incredible in those last 2 drives. Yeah. Oh, my God, 4 third-down conversions in overtime. The Patriots and Tom Brady are the greatest. Oh, my God. All changes because of D. Ford. So before we anoint the second coming, let's look at it from that standpoint.
I have never heard you so...
I'm loving Brandon today.
Smoking this week, Brandon? What's going on?
You are full of blank and vinegar.
But think about that. Just
That's crazy.
Just take a step back with me for 1 second. Because
it was a toe offside too.
About
he was
one more big fact.
I felt he was completely lined up off. He was lined up offside.
Well, I'm not questioning
way
it, but
overside.
he was.
But here's a question: since when has the NFL started calling? Because it seems like with Brady, there are penalties in the NFL. It's all in the rule book, but there's a special Brady rule book that is, if you make eye contact with Tom Brady, it is a 15-yard face mask penalty.
Well, let me go back. The personal foul penalty on Brady was on 2nd down and 9. It's still, if they no call it there, incomplete pass over Edelman, it still sets up 3rd and 9. And the Chiefs couldn't get off the field on 3rd down pretty much that entire game. One more thing I'm going to tell your listeners. On those last 2 drives for the Patriots, there was a key piece to the Chiefs' defense that was missing. A guy by the name of Chris Jones, number 95, who hurt his knee in their nose guard, who was not in the game for those last 2 drives. So, changes the narrative. Yeah. Not only does D. Ford cost his team a chance to the Super Bowl, just think about this for a minute. He cost defensive coordinator Sutton his job because they get out of there with the win. They're going to the Super Bowl. This man has a job. D. Ford and D. Ford alone is responsible for putting the New England Patriots into the Super Bowl.
So I'd like to. What do you think then, Rams and Patriots? What do you think in that game?
I'll give your listeners some numbers just to process before we break down the game next week. Patriots have been to 8 Super Bowls. I've gone 8-0 against the spread, going with or against them. They're 5-3 straight up. They're 3-5 against the spread. All 5 Patriot wins in the Super Bowl have been by 3 points. They've been a favorite 7 times, an underdog once. Plus 14 against the Rams. They won the game outright, the Vinatieri field goal. They were -1 against Seattle, -3 against Atlanta. Beat Seattle, beat Atlanta. But look at the Seattle and Atlanta Super Bowl. Atlanta blows a 28-3 lead. Malcolm Butler intercepts Russell Wilson at the goal line. pretty much could have two losses right there. Carolina and Jake Delhomme, they were a 7-point favorite, won by 3. They were -4 against Philadelphia. Eagles got a backdoor touchdown with 14 seconds to go in the game to cover. Their losses were to the Giants by 3, and the Eagles by 8. Now, for your listeners, here are some incredible Super Bowl numbers. Rams coach Sean McVay is 10-0 straight up, 8-2 against the spread on the road versus teams that were an underdog in their previous game. Super Bowl favorites of 5 points or less that had a bye week to start the playoffs, which are the Patriots, are 2-10 straight up and against the spread, including 0-5 straight up and against the spread if they were an underdog in their previous game, which the Patriots were. Another good one for you. Teams that scored 100 points or more in their previous game, previous 3 games. Patriots 100 points combined against the Jets. Against the Bills, against the Chargers, against the Chiefs. And they scored 36 points in their last game, are 0-5 against the spread since 1980. And here's the ace on the river, the one number to let your listeners go, oh, my God. Teams that lost the Super Bowl the previous year that get back to the Super Bowl, they are 0-5, straight up and against the spread.
All things that lead us to one direction here. So,
well, all I'll say is this: the line opened up the Rams -1. The world has bet the Patriots. Currently at -2.5. 2 days ago, Michael Gaughan at the South Point Casino here in Las Vegas was the only casino of the 50 to bump the point spread up to 3. And over the next 4 hours, he got 30 people when word got out to rush over to South Point, and he took $60,000 in action of every single person betting the Rams +3. At the end of the day, he dropped it back to 2.5, and he said in the paper, I just wanted to see how many people would roll in here. And then he said, how many of those people stayed and gambled in my casino? He said, it's a pretty good day.
Yeah.
And he's the kind of guy that walks around the casino and says, drinks are $2 all day for everybody. Great property, great guy. So I think everybody's waiting to see if that line goes up to 3 here in the next 2 weeks.
We did walk away, though, with this feeling that Brady is still the same Tom Brady, that the Patriots are so much better than anybody gave them credit for. They've been the underdog. They're the dynasty, and they're still there.
No, I don't walk away from that game saying that.
Well, clearly, I know you. I listened to what you just said. You clearly are the opposite of everybody else.
Everything that happened after D. Ford lining up in the neutral zone was irrelevant to what really happened.
Mm-hmm.
You had a tired defense without Chris Jones that was gassed, that played 44 minutes of football in a game.
Yeah.
When the Chiefs scored, they scored fast.
Yeah.
That defense was on the field the whole game. So I get it. You give Brady a second chance, he's going to do it. But up until that point, that D. Ford lined up in the neutral zone, they struggled to score 10 points in the second half. He threw his third interception to end the game. Their defense gave up 4 touchdowns in the second half.
Yeah.
But everybody's anointing this team as the greatest thing since sliced bread. And listen, I may still take the Patriots -2.5 because it's a value number.
Yeah.
But if it goes to 3, I think people are really sleeping on the Rams here, who are 13-3, and for the most part have been rock solid all year long. I mean, look at their 3 losses. 15-6 to Chicago on the road. That was probably the worst game they played all year. The Eagles beat them late in the year, 30-23, but the Eagles beat them last year. The Eagles match up really well against them. They just do. They just, for whatever reason, they match up really well. And their last loss was a game that could have went either way. I don't know why I keep forgetting what that loss was. Another close game that they lost.
Was it Seattle?
No, they beat Seattle twice in 2 games that went down to the wire. It was the Saints. The Saints, which they were down 21 points in the second quarter, came back to tie the game at 35 and got the ball back and then went 3 and out. And then pretty much it was a field goal game. They got the lucky pass to Thomas at the end of the game. But don't sleep on. And listen, the Super Bowl comes down to one thing and one thing only when you handicap it, when you involve the Patriots. If the defensive line of the Rams or the defensive line that the team they're playing, you think can get pressure on Brady, then you're going to take that team. If you don't think they can, you're going to take the Patriots. And, they played great against the Chiefs. But listen, as well as they played against the Chiefs, as well as they protected against the Chiefs, as well as they didn't allow a sack against the Chiefs, they still lost the game.
Right.
So, give them credit. They got a second chance. They won. But don't sleep on this Rams team and just think it's going to be a walkover. Like I said at the top, it's kind of weird that in all 5 Patriot wins are by 3 points. And I've said this on your show before. It's not the Patriots don't blow people out in the Super Bowl, because when they get to the Super Bowl, they're not necessarily the best team. They're not a Niners team that put up 55 on Buffalo, or the Denver that put up 40-something on 38-14 and scored. What they do? Doug Williams scored 4 touchdowns in the second quarter.
Yeah.
We never see that from the Patriots. Why? Because they're not the best team when they get to the Super Bowl, but they're the best coach team, which is why they get to the Super Bowl.
We'll talk again next week, and of course, the Super Bowl is a week away. It's BrandonLang.com. Interesting insight there, Brandon. We'll do it again next week.
Yeah, I just think I woke up 5 minutes ago and came out on fire.
You were
How about
on
that?
fire.
Hey, you're ready for the day.
Probably your best performance ever, right here, right there.
Oh,
right here.
come on. Thanks,
All right.
man.
Thanks, man. Ryan Noble, CNN. Coming up next, I do want to read some of the nasty comments that were made on our Facebook page over these, my take on the Catholic boys, the Native American, and that the black Hebrew Israelites.
Yeah.
Oh, Lordy. They're something. Good morning, Ryan Nobles.
Hey, Bill, sorry about yesterday. I'm feeling better today, and I'm here raring and ready to go for you.
We are going to ignore you for 5 seconds. Okay, that's how we punish. Sorry. Who's on the line? Do we know who this is?
I don't know who it is.
I don't know who it is.
Fair enough.
So, Ryan, on the story, I know we'll get into Pelosi.
The real reason it was a CNN shutdown yesterday, okay, is what happened.
The Pelosi presidential battle here, who, I'm going to tell you right now, Pelosi's holding her own and might even be winning here. We'll get to that. But on the issue of the Catholic students that were in a pro-life march, they're waiting for the bus. We all know the story. It's been overblown. Waiting for the bus. There's the Native American who kind of might have deceived us a little bit, took advantage of a reporter that maybe didn't do their homework. Additionally, there's this black Hebrew Israelite group, and they clearly were acting racist and like bigots. So my take on the whole thing, I did an op-ed on this, and I'm just getting hammered over it. I'm saying the kids were still in the wrong, and I'll explain. But I want you to hear some of the anger that has been expressed on Facebook here.
Does WIBX or Keeler even bother researching stories before putting out BS?
They didn't read my op-ed, because had they done that, they wouldn't be so ignorant. Next comment.
In the midst of story retractions, media apologies, and tweet deletions, Keeler
Again,
doubles down on a false narrative.
Ignorance.
Oh, hey, has anyone...
How about the one about the ratings? Looks like the competition is taking him over. Okay, that's as ignorant as anyone I've ever heard in my life. As I will repeat, if a tree falls in the forest and there's nobody there, you do the math. Okay, next.
Here's another one. The Covington boys should sue the media for $5.7 billion, then donate the money to Trump. Thus, the media pays for the wall.
Okay.
That's great.
At least that was
That's
entertaining.
a good one.
I like that one.
That's a really
Maybe
good
that's
one.
how the shutdown ends. Has anybody thought about that?
Maybe it is.
Well,
Maybe
that is an idea.
Yeah, instead of over a beer, it ends over a good protest.
Yeah.
So
Lawsuit.
Now, listen, Ryan, my take is this, and and I am not some holier than thou person. I am not but I believe in respect. I believe in that a kid who's 15 years, and I argued with my son over this, just to be honest with you. If you're 15 years old and there's some 75-year-old guy that might not be acting appropriately, you have the right, in my opinion, and what I would ask my kids to do to get out of that situation. Do not argue with an 80-year-old. Do not put a smirk on your face that picture angers me so much. And for that reason, if my kids were in that photo, we would be having a serious conversation on respect. And I'm sorry, that's how I believe. But this has become so political. People are nuts. All of a sudden, I'm anti-Trump. I mean, I want your take on it.
Well, to that last point that you made, what I found most fascinating about it was when the outcry started, the second it happened, I had friends texting me who are Trump supporters who were immediately rushing to defend these guys. And then when the new information came out that it wasn't perhaps everything that we saw at the beginning, there were all kinds of folks who don't like President Trump who were rushing to argue that they were still in the wrong. And, and there is a pretty obvious line to be drawn here between whose side you're on, and it has a lot to do with whether or not you support President Trump or whether you don't support President Trump. But I think to your broader point here, the thing I find most disturbing about the whole incident is that when you go back to the young man's statement, he says that, when those black Hebrew Israelites were screaming at them, and that was completely inappropriate, and they shouldn't have been in that situation.
Yeah, horrible.
Their chaperones, the adults in the situation,
you're right.
Granted them the ability to start screaming back at these guys with their school chant.
When is this school going to start firing people? That's what I'd like to know.
If I were a chaperone of a bunch of young people at an event like this in an open public space, and I had a bunch of adults screaming expletives at my group of kids, my response to them wouldn't be, hey, guys, you start yelling back at them. My response would be, let's find a way out of here.
Let's move. Let's move.
The National Mall is huge.
Let's hide behind Lincoln. Do something. Come on.
Yes, where they were standing was nowhere near where bus pickups are.
Right.
Move it exactly to where the bus is going to pick you up. And I think had they done that, just walked away from those guys yelling at them, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
We wouldn't even know about it,
So, so I don't think those kids acted the way they probably should have. The kid ripping off his shirt, the screaming and yelling, that was all wrong. I do think the older gentleman involved in it, I think he thought he had a good intention to try and defuse the situation, but that didn't really help.
And let's be honest, he took advantage of people that didn't quite do their homework.
Right, and there are reports that same group tried to disrupt the Mass at the Basilica the night before. So, it's one of these, unfortunately, I have kind of a broader thought on this, Bill, in that these protests in Washington, and it seems like there's one every single week up here. I know because I get asked to cover a lot of them. I think we're reaching this point here where their effectiveness has really drained out. It was interesting on the March for Life Day, and the March for Life is really an incredible spectacle if you've never seen it before. It is hundreds of thousands of people. But I was in the Capitol all day that day. I did not realize I'd forgotten that it was taking place until I walked out and looked outside and saw them all. So, these protests that happen year after year, and they're trying to do this with the Women's March as well. I think everybody's trying to capture this lightning in the bottle that happens the first time one of these protests happen.
Yeah.
When they happen year after year after year, with each passing year, they lose a little bit of their effectiveness. And I think there's a diminishing return on that. And I think this is an example of this. You got all these people that are kind of heated up and hopped up on this. This isn't, the Women's March was the day after, which turned out to be a much smaller event than anybody had anticipated. The March for Life the day before. Neither one of those marches, which brought hundreds of thousands of people to Washington, did anything to change the conversation about the issues that they care about. It didn't change it at all.
Right.
And I understand that people have this powerful, visceral need to kind of contribute to the conversation, and I appreciate that, and I understand it. I just wonder, if I'm an organizer, I'm an activist trying to change things, I wonder how effective marches like this really are.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, everybody's chasing the big legendary ones.
Well, they all want to be Martin Luther King Jr., and that bar is incredibly high and impossible to reach. The first Women's March was something we didn't expect. It was a very kind of ragtag organizational thing. They kind of put the thing out on Facebook, and next thing you knew, it was way beyond what anybody expected.
Yeah.
It's never going to be like that again. Right. The first March for Life was similar the same way. They're never going to be like that again. And in Washington, where we're so used to people protesting and taking to the streets, I mean, it's a very kind of formal thing. You have to file paperwork with the city, and there's a very specific place that you're allowed to walk. I mean, it's a protest basically in name only. It's really all sanctioned and allowed to go forward by the government.
Here's a question for you, personal. So your kids come home and they say, "We want you to sign this permission slip. We're going to take a bus. We're going to go down and protest in the pro-life march." The way America is right now, the first thing I would say to my kids is no. You're not going. I wouldn't want you to be a part of that because of the tensions are so high right now. To me, I would fear that someone's going to try to pull off something. Somebody's going to try to take advantage. And the only way these marches become big news is if somebody shoots somebody or somebody.
That's so routine.
About marches is that when the marches really become news is when they become violent. And there becomes something that's not supposed to happen.
Yeah, that's where I want my 15-year-old. I'm sorry.
It's a weird thing, Bill. want my kids to be engaged enough and passionate enough about things that they would want to participate in something like that.
I
but
agree.
I do think you're right. As a parent, your first concern is about their safety, and there were a lot of kids that went to this March for Life that came home without any problems.
Right.
But this situation with these kids from Kentucky could have turned really bad really quick.
Oh, this was so close to being on so many different levels.
I think it would certainly make me think twice about it, and that I think that's disappointing because you'd want your children to be involved in that kind of civic activity to kind of teach them about how this works. But you're right. I think it would make me think twice.
Do you want to add something?
I was just going to say I do think there was a negative outcome. Nobody was immediately injured, but I mean, didn't they have to close the school because of death threats? People were going to come and bomb them,
and that's the whole thing. People were saying things like, "Well, that group was they were protesting at a mass the night before, and they were yelling out the N-word, and they were or whatever they were yelling out. It was bigotry. It was anti-gay stuff." That doesn't make the way those kids behaved right. But you bring up a very good point, and it's in my op-ed as well. The chaperones, they basically gave these kids the green light to be doing this, and really they put those kids in a lot of danger, and I think that's terrible. Speaking of danger, who's going down this topic is always dangerous. Who's winning? Is it Nancy Pelosi or President Trump?
Well, if you just look at the opinion polling, and I know that President Trump would completely ignore that. I mean, there's no poll that you can find that shows that Americans place more blame on anybody more than President Trump. I think it's like a 60-30 split somewhere in there. I mean, even congressional Republicans are not bearing the responsibility that President Trump is right now, and it's not hard to understand why. When a week before this all went down, he looked Chuck Schumer in the face and said that I'm going to own the shutdown. I'm happy to shut down the government.
Yeah.
I think most Americans do blame President Trump for that. The question I still have right now is, are most Americans as outraged about this as they should be? 800,000 people is a lot in the United States, but there's a very good chance that many Americans, particularly President Trump supporters, can go through everyday life without the shutdown impacting them in any way, shape, or form. Right. So I don't think there's a lot of Americans that truly understand just how damaging this whole situation is to the United States, not just from the conducting of government business, but also from a pure economic standpoint. One of President Trump's economic advisors said yesterday on CNN that there's a chance that we could see zero growth across the entire country in the first quarter because of the shutdown. I mean, it is every single day just tearing away at the fabric of the United States economy, and not to mention the fact the moral implication of all of these poor people who just come to work every day who aren't getting a paycheck. I mean, I can't wrap my mind around it.
How far are we, though, from this being, because the way I feel is everybody's in the wrong, and I would love to see them not taking a paycheck right now in Congress because of this. But how long before the general public is going to say, at this point, I'm not siding with Pelosi anymore. This is everybody. You're all in the wrong. We're not standing for this anymore.
Well, it's interesting because I actually talked to Speaker Pelosi 2 days ago, Tuesday, and we asked that specific question. Shouldn't you just cut a deal here to get out of this?
Yeah.
Her point is that if they cut a deal to give him border security, and it's used against the backdrop of the shutdown, that sets a precedent where every single time President Trump wants something, he's just going to wait for the next continuing resolution to expire and use the shutdown again as a way to get whatever pet project he cares about. And so she said, her point is that she's willing to cut a deal on border security, but you got to open the government first. And what I can't seem to wrap my mind around is why President Trump doesn't say, okay, I'll open the government, but I'm going to put a time clock on it, right? Why can't you say
you had Lindsey Graham.
Days?
Lindsey Graham made that proposal, Ryan.
Yes, exactly.
30 days.
30 days.
Yep.
30 days. So, okay, the government is back open now.
Yeah.
Now give me 30 days to cut a deal on border security. That's a win for everyone, right? Because Nancy and Chuck get their thing where they don't cut a deal on border security because the government's open first. Then there's a time clock that's set on this where Schumer and Pelosi have to seriously deal
Yep.
over those next 30 days to get the job done. And, by the way, they have leverage here to get something big. You know, the president's already opened the door to some sort of temporary protection for dreamers. Right. Now this is where they say we want permanent protection for dreamers, and maybe we'll even give you a little bit more money for the wall.
At the same time, though, Pelosi can't come out and say, "I'll only give you $1." And that is what the president's hanging his hat on. Ryan, really good stuff. I've got Anthony that wants to pipe in just quickly. He's been waiting, so I'll give him the final word here with Ryan on the Kentucky kids. Anthony, you're on the radio.
Yes.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm here. I'm not sure if you folks are aware of a certain statement that one of the boys said to a lady there that he yelled out, "It's not rape if you enjoy it."
I didn't see it. Did you hear that, Ryan?
Yeah, it was on all the news.
Video. Yeah, it wasn't the main kid the main kid who's kind of been the focus of all this. But I have seen that video that he's talking about. That did get yelled out by one of the kids.
And listen, my take on this is I have a problem with us trying to portray these kids as the good guys.
Right.
It's not even. I get it. The black Hebrew Israelites, the American Indian. I get that. But to proclaim these kids as heroes is ridiculous. And they were disrespectful. That's my take. Anthony, thanks for that. I didn't know that, but I appreciate your call.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
And Ryan, as always, thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. Have a good weekend.